my mom texted, "Don't call or come over. We're done." I replied, "Got it." By midnight, my phone was blowing up with missed calls and messages. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I didn't even ask why. The anger I felt wasn't hot. It was cold. It was clinical. I just opened my laptop. The screen glowed in my dark apartment at 11:52 p.m. I logged into my bank account. For 5 years, I had been the silent investor in the failing experiment known as my family. I was the safety net, the reliable one, the one who always paid. 11:53 p.m. I navigated to scheduled payments. The $5,000 monthly transfer for their fleet fuel contract. Click. Canceled. 11:54 p.m. The payment for their truck fleet insurance. Click. Canceled. 11:55 p.m. The recurring transfer to my mother Kimberly's account for her ongoing medical bills. Click. Blocked. Some people will say that's cold. They'll say, "How can you turn your back on family?" But they don't understand. We're taught that cutting off a toxic family member is an act of aggression, that it's cruel, but it's not. It's an act of self-preservation. It's the final, painful admission that you can't fix them. It's realizing that the only person you can save is yourself. It feels like cutting off a limb to save your own life. It's not abandonment. It's survival. By 12:03 a.m., my phone, which had been silent, started to explode. First Mom, then Dad, then Christopher. Missed call, voicemail, text. They were panicking. I had been their life raft for half a decade, and I had just pulled it out of the water. I was done. You have to understand. My family runs Henderson Transport. It's a regional trucking company. My father Richard built his entire identity around. I was the black sheep, the one who chose writing code over driving trucks. My younger brother Christopher was the golden child. He was the one destined to inherit the legacy. But I was the one keeping that legacy alive. You see, this wasn't just about a missed payment. This was about 5 years of systematic drainage, over $500,000 in 5 years. When they faced foreclosure on their main warehouse, I was the one who paid the property taxes. When Christopher, my golden child brother, had his first brilliant expansion idea that failed and cost $60,000, I was the one who covered the debt. When my mother Kimberly needed surgery and specialized care, I paid the medical bills, all of them. And in return, I got silence. I got contempt. I got invited to family dinners only to be ignored while my father praised Christopher for just showing up. You have to understand the dynamic. In families like mine, it's not about logic. It's about psychology. They assign roles. Christopher was the golden child. His role was to be the vessel for all their hopes, which meant he was never allowed to fail, and any mistake he made had to be erased. I was the black sheep, or maybe more accurately, the scapegoat. My role was different. My role was to be the family's shock absorber. I was the one who was supposed to take the pain, absorb the cost, and carry the blame. It's a toxic, unspoken contract. He gets the praise, I get the bills. This dynamic isn't built on love. It's built on a desperate need to maintain an illusion. And for 5 years, I had been paying to keep that illusion alive. They didn't apologize. They attacked. After the initial storm of missed calls, the texts started. The tone shifted from pure panic to entitled anger. The first one was from Christopher. "Hey, I think you're overreacting. Mom's just upset. You should probably turn the money back on before Dad really loses it." Overreacting? as if my $500,000 was a minor inconvenience, as if his hearting the message that disowned me was just a small misunderstanding. He wasn't sorry. He was annoyed that I'd disrupted his comfortable life. Then came my mother, Kimberly. Her text landed like a lead weight. We need to talk about what you've done. You've created a terrible mess. You need to call us immediately. What I've done. Not what they did. Not the accusation. Not the years of financial drainage. I had created the mess by simply stopping, by refusing to be their silent, obedient bank. But the final nail in the coffin came from my father, Richard. He didn't just text me, he went public. He posted on the official Facebook page for Henderson Transport. It's a sad day when your own flesh and blood betrays you. Some people forget who raised them and who gave them everything. We are a family built on loyalty, and we will weather this storm. I read that post 3 times. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. He was painting me as the traitor. Me, the one who had paid his taxes, funded his son's mistakes, and kept his trucks on the road, all while he was planning to cut me out. That post erased any lingering doubt, any microscopic shred of guilt I might have felt. They weren't sorry. They were doubling down. They weren't just ungrateful. They were actively painting me as the villain to save their own reputation. They weren't panicking because they'd lost a daughter. They were panicking because they'd lost their line of credit. And they had just confirmed that my decision wasn't an overreaction. It was a long overdue escape. The attacks were desperate and they were clumsy. But they gave me the final piece of clarity I needed. I stopped looking at my phone. The emotional phase was over. It was time to get professional. I made one call, not to my lawyer, not yet. I called Lauren Christopher's wife. She was the only one in that family who lived in the real world, and I knew she was tired. Tired of her husband's behavior, tired of the lies. She answered on the second ring, her voice a whisper. "Samantha, are you okay? Your family they're losing their minds. Christopher is telling everyone you're trying to destroy them." "Lauren, I need to know why." "That text from my mom. We know what you did. What did they think I did?" She hesitated, and I heard her close a door. "Christopher," she said, her voice shaking, with a mixture of anger and exhaustion. "He's been siphoning money from the fuel accounts for years, tens of thousands, maybe more. When he realized you were cutting off the money that was accidentally covering his tracks, he went straight to your father." My blood ran cold. What did he tell him? "He told him you were the one stealing," she breathed. "He said you were the only one with access to all the payment portals. He said you were using your support payments as a complex cover to hide your own theft. He framed you, Sam." And they believed him. They believed him instantly. That was it, the missing piece. The text from my mother wasn't just abandonment. It was an accusation. They hadn't just disowned me. They'd convicted me. "Thank you, Lauren," I said, my voice perfectly calm. "You just confirmed everything I needed to know. Stay safe." I hung up and made my second call. This one was to my lawyer. "Sarah," I said, "I have a situation. It's part business, part family." I didn't tell her the emotional story. I didn't talk about black sheep or golden children. I gave her facts. I gave her a balance sheet. For the past 60 months, I explained I have made documented regular payments to support Henderson Transport, my father's company. These payments were made in good faith to cover fleet insurance, fuel contracts, and medical bills. They total over $500,000. I have records of every single transaction. Okay, she said. And what's the issue? As of last night, I've been disowned and falsely accused of theft, which I can now prove was a lie orchestrated by my brother to cover his own embezzlement. My support, it seems, was just enabling fraud. Sarah was silent for a moment. Then I see. So this isn't a family drama, Samantha. This is a high-stakes debt collection case. What is your objective? Repayment, I said. Accountability. Good. I could hear her typing. We'll draft a formal demand notice. We'll send it via certified mail to Richard Kimberly and Christopher Henderson. We will give them 30 days to contact this office and negotiate a formal repayment plan for the $500,000. If they fail to respond, she paused. We file a suit and move to seize company assets. Trucks, warehouses, accounts, receivable, everything. I looked out my apartment window. The sun was starting to rise. Do it, I said. This wasn't an emotional outburst anymore. This was a tactical response. I had stopped being their daughter. Now, I was just their biggest creditor. And the bill was officially due. The demand letter went out. Certified, clinical, lethal. For 2 days, the silence was deafening. No more angry texts, no more panicked voicemails. I knew they'd received it. I imagined the scene in that house. My father Richard staring at the legal document, the $500,000 number staring back at him. My mother Kimberly probably crying. Christopher probably lying, trying to spin his way out of it. I tried to focus on work. I tried to answer emails, but my mind was elsewhere. I was waiting for their next move. I expected them to call, to beg, to threaten again. What I didn't expect was for Sarah, my lawyer, to call me. Samantha, she said, and her voice was different. The calm, professional tone was gone. It was replaced by something sharp. I need you to sit down. What is it? I took the liberty of running a full credit check on you just to see if there were any other financial ties to your family's company that you might have forgotten about. Your name isn't just a creditor, Sam. It's a debtor. My stomach tightened. What are you talking about? 6 months ago, a business loan was taken out for $350,000. It was issued to Henderson Transport. Okay. So, they're drowning in loans. No, Samantha, she said, and I could hear her shuffling papers. The loan wasn't just for Henderson Transport. You were the primary applicant. You co-signed it. I stopped. What? No, I didn't. I haven't signed anything for them in over 2 years. They used your personal information, your social security number, your address, everything. It must have been from one of those previous bailouts you mentioned. I'm looking at the digital signature packet right now. The signature, she paused. It's a forgery, a bad one. They didn't even try to make it look like yours. The room tilted. $350,000. I thought back to that meeting I'd had with them, the one where I presented my software idea, the proposal they laughed at, the one I begged them to invest in, the one that cost. $350,000. They didn't just reject my idea. They rejected me, then turned around and stole the exact same amount of money using my name. And the timing. Calm 6 months ago. It was right after Lauren said Christopher's embezzlement really ramped up. They didn't take that loan to invest in the company. They took that loan to plug the hole Christopher was digging. They used my future to pay for his crimes. This wasn't just a family dispute anymore. This wasn't about being ungrateful or playing favorites. This was fraud. This was identity theft. They weren't just a toxic, dysfunctional family. They were criminals. and I was their victim. The knock on my apartment door came 2 days later. It wasn't the aggressive pounding of my brother, but a rapid, desperate tapping. I looked through the peephole. It was my mother, Kimberly. She looked terrible. Her usually perfect hair was a mess, her eyes red and swollen from crying. She was alone. I opened the door, but kept the chain on. Samantha. Thank God, she sobbed, pushing against the door slightly. You have to help us. Please. You have to call off your lawyer. I just looked at her. I said nothing. They're seizing the trucks, Samantha, she cried, actual tears streaming down her face. Your father, they're going to take everything. The warehouse, the house. We're losing it all. Please, I'm begging you. Think about your family. I am, I said, my voice flat. Your brother. Please, Samantha, do it for Christopher, she begged, her voice cracking. Whatever he did, he didn't mean it. You can't let this happen to him. He's your brother. I let her words hang in the air. I let her finish her entire desperate plea. I listened as she begged for Christopher, as she cried for the trucks, as she lamented about the house and the company. And in all of it, not once did she say, I'm sorry. Not once did she say, we were wrong. Not once did she ask how I felt when they accused me of being a criminal. She wasn't here to apologize. She was here for another bailout. She still saw me as the solution to their problems, not as the person they had profoundly wronged. Hold on, I said. A brief flash of hope lit up her tear-stained face. She thought I was caving. She thought the tears had worked just like they always had. I turned from the door, walked to my desk, and picked up 2 documents. I walked back and slid them through the narrow opening. You asked me to do something, I said, my voice as cold and hard as steel. I already did. She looked down at the papers, confused. What? What is this? The first document is a copy of the seizure notice you're so worried about. That's from my lawyer. That's for the $500,000 I loaned you. She stared at it, uncomprehending. The second document, I continued, is the one you should really be focused on. That's my copy of the official police report I filed for identity theft, for the $350,000 fraudulent loan, the one you all signed my name to. Her face went from red to a ghostly white. The tears stopped instantly. The police, she whispered, her hand shaking. You called the police on your father. No, I said, looking her directly in the eyes. I called the police on a criminal who stole my identity. He just happens to be my father. I started to close the door. Samantha, wait, you can't, she shrieked, pressing her hands against the wood. Goodbye, Mom. I closed the door, slid the deadbolt, and walked away, as she pounded on the other side, her pleas turning to screams. I didn't look back. The fallout was immediate, and it was absolute. My lawsuit, combined with the criminal charges for identity theft, was a storm they couldn't weather. Henderson Transport was declared insolvent. The trucks were liquidated at auction. The warehouse was seized by the bank. The house I grew up in was sold to cover a fraction of their debts. Christopher faced multiple felony charges for embezzlement and fraud. He ended up taking a plea deal that landed him with probation and a restitution order he would likely be paying for the rest of his life. My father Richard and my mother Kimberly lost everything. Their reputation in the Charlotte business community was destroyed. They moved into a small, run-down rental apartment across town, their legacy of family loyalty reduced to hushed whispers and public record of their disgrace. And me? That same week, the deal for my logistics software, the pipe dream they had laughed at, was finalized. A national firm acquired it. The final wire transfer hit my account $2,500,000. I sat in my apartment looking at the number on the screen. I thought about the $350,000 I had begged them for. I thought about them rejecting me, then turning around and stealing that exact amount under my name. I could have just walked away. I could have taken that money and disappeared, and no one would have blamed me. But there's a difference between the justice of punishment and the justice of the sower. Punitive justice just looks backward, focusing on the pain on making the other person hurt as much as you did. But sower's justice, that looks forward. It's about using the very ground that was salted by your enemies and planting something new. It's about building a future so bright that it makes their past actions, their cruelty, their entire legacy look small and irrelevant. I opened a new folder on my laptop. I didn't just walk away. I began to build. 2 months later, I launched Phoenix Logistics Solutions, my own company with my own $2.5 million in capital. My first act of business wasn't to rent a fancy office. It was to make a list of all the good, honest drivers and dispatchers my father had fired or underpaid over the years. I hired them. I offered them better salaries, full benefits, and shares in the company. I wasn't just building a company. I was redefining the Henderson legacy. Not one built on toxic loyalty and fraud, but one built on innovation, integrity, and respect. My father's company was dead, but the real Henderson Transport, the one built on the values he only pretended to have, was just beginning. That was my real victory. Thank you for listening to my story. I think we all have a choice when we're wronged. We can let the injustice define us, or we can use it as fuel to build something better. Have you ever had to choose between staying silent and setting a boundary that changed everything? I would be honored to read your story in the comments below. Please share.